As usual, I'd like to thank everyone for posting your questions, making this video possible. Let's begin. There are some questions regarding the Phil Leonetti video. Do you think John Stanfa was in on the Angelo Bruno hit? As most of us know, Angelo Bruno was killed on March 21st, 1980, while he was sitting in a car outside his house, and in the car with him was his driver, John Stanfa. Whether or not Stanfa was in on the hit, I have no way of knowing, but I imagine if he wasn't, he must have did the sign of the cross that only Bruno was shot. In my opinion, he was involved, and it wasn't a coincidence or luck why he wasn't killed too. Why do you think Phil Leonetti didn't prevent Salvi Testa from being killed if he was so close to him? First and foremost, let's not forget who wanted to kill Salvi Testa, Nicky Scarfo. This was not a guy who casually thought about killing someone. He obsessed over it. Scarfo was a paranoid conspiracy theorist, and had Leonetti tried talking him out of killing Testa, he would have thought Leonetti was in on what he believed was Testa's plan to take over. In Scarfo's mind, you were either with him or against him. So Leonetti, being aware of this, knew there was no talking his uncle out of it, and by attempting to do so, would only put his own life in jeopardy. In the history of mob murders, there were many instances where guys knew someone was going and felt bad about it and wished it wouldn't happen. Nonetheless, they also knew better than to voice their opinion, as it would be their very last opinion. When Tony Corallo was the Lucchese boss, it seemed like a well-oiled machine. When Vic Amuso took over, it seems like he ran it into the ground. As the Lucchese family recovered, Tony Ducks was from the old school, whose focus was on making money and didn't need to remind anyone that he was the boss. That fact was established. His underboss, Tom Mick Santoro, was cut from the same cloth. Vic Amuso, conversely, was from the new breed of mobsters, a much different mentality. Synonymous to Vic was his underboss Gaspipe, and together they equally dragged the family and themselves down. As for the Lucchese family recovering, let's not forget, Vic still remains the boss, and the current administration are all graduates of the Vic and Gas School, and are still making blunderous mistakes till this very day, and that's all I'll say regarding that subject. This next person wanted to know if I had a favorite person who was also in the mob. Taking the word favorite out of my answer, I've always found Meyer Lansky to be interesting for his business mind. If the mob was so strict on guys being with other guys' wives, what was their stance on guys marrying other members' ex-wives, and how did some get away with it? To begin with, I, for one, never said the mob was strict on this issue, but have repeatedly stated it was a rule and one often broken. My answer is one that many have heard me repeat. These are people who continuously break their own rules. Yet when an ex-member breaks the rule of omerta, they're labeled rats, when in actuality, these rule breakers are also rats, using their term for breaking all the other rules. Let me ask the viewers, if you're playing a game with rules, do you consider any player who breaks the rules a cheater? Do you differentiate which rule is broken to label a person a cheater? No. Naturally, anybody that breaks a rule is cheating and is considered a cheater. With that said, the mob is replete with rats, again using their own terminology. Was the Lucchese family or any other family involved in the sale of on-tax cigarettes? I don't know about other families or what they were involved in, but I believe the Lucchese's had some recent involvement in selling on-tax cigarettes, but I personally did not, nor have first-hand knowledge. Are people responsible for laundering their own money, or are there people who do this on behalf of others? There has always been certain people, legitimate people, who specialize in money laundering. If a person wants to wash money he has, it's really on him to who he goes to. I don't know if Frankie Lastarino was alive during the Lucchese transition in 2017. If he was, did DeSantis talk about wanting to bring him off the shelf? At the time, Frankie was still alive. And following Mikey becoming the acting boss, he did meet with Frankie. What they spoke about, I have no idea. Most likely, it was a conversation that they would take him off the shelf once Vic passes away, because Frankie was not coming off that shelf while Vic is still alive. But since Vic has outlived Frankie, it's no longer an issue. Did you have any interactions with Ronnie Gervasi? Did you know what crew he was in? Ronnie was the brother of Scotty Gervasi, who was in our crew and has since passed away. Ronnie at the time was with Joe Cafe's crew. Do you know if the recent global pandemic, with its subsequent lockdowns, changed the way the mob did business? I was out of the life when the pandemic struck, but I know in Italy and Sicily, the mafia took advantage of the pandemic. For example, they loaned money to struggling businesses. So I'm sure in America, they also took advantage. In your insider video, you mentioned members were not allowed to get involved in stocks and bonds. Can members invest in securities, such as retirement and their children's education? I was told by an old timer that years ago, guys couldn't get involved with stocks or I think some type of bonds. I'm not sure. But during my time, this wasn't a rule. And guys can invest in anything they want. If a shelved guy is earning money with another family, does this become a dispute over money or over using this shelved guy? Well, the other family would be in the wrong because someone who's on the shelf, they're not supposed to be bothering with, let alone making money with him. As for the money issue, it would all depend on who's putting in the beef. Were you allowed to have sit-downs alone with other families over disputes, or does a captain have to attend? You can attend to sit down on your own, and a captain only gets involved if you and the other person can't come to a resolution. The words honor and toughness are used to define mafia figures. What characteristics or qualities in the mafia should define honor? Also, given the amount of treachery that you speak of, is honor something that no longer exists? In a nutshell, honor equates to integrity. Are there guys still in a life that carry themselves with honor? Of course, but few and far between. For me, the rules were the highest level of importance as far as being honorable. I myself followed them until they were broken concerning me. Then all bets were off. I followed their lead. They broke the rules, I broke the rules. Let me quickly remind people to hit the like button and also the super thanks icon found beneath this video. A person wanted to know if the content of the oath a person takes during a ceremony had changed following the commission trial. As far as I know, the oath had been passed down since its inception. Maybe the wording varies, but on a whole, it remained the same. What are the chances of rehabilitating active members? What stops them from changing? Anyone could be rehabilitated if they want to. It comes from within. What stops change is a person's refusal to change. Coincidentally, I actually have something going on to do with this subject, but we're trying to figure out how to post it while protecting the person's identity. It has to do with a recent conversation, which I may transcribe and heavily edit. It's up to the other person, but we'll see. And for the final question, do you think that ex-mobsters regret the crimes they committed and have remorse towards the harm they caused victims and their families? Obviously, I can't speak for anyone else. What I can say is words are cheap, and it's actions that speak volumes. If a guy's on YouTube trashing people, backbiting, and causing unnecessary trouble, or pounding their chest, talking about things they've never done, then that also speaks volumes and is a blatant example of incorrigibility. Over and above that is having a new chance at life and getting rearrested. What does that say about your character? Remember, bona fide tough guys need not speak about what they've done or what they can do. They just act when necessary. Once again, words mean absolutely nothing. As I mentioned, change comes from within, and so does remorse. And you show both not by words, but by your actions, as well as the new way in which you choose to carry yourself, like the civilian that you now are.